If you grew up on Saturday morning cartoons and sugar cereal that could legally strip paint, you probably remember that Hanna Barbera once held every child in a chokehold with their parade of cape wearing, laser blasting, prehistoric outer space crime fighters. And yet, somehow, despite once being icons of syndicated omnipresence, most of these heroes now live in that dusty vault of half remembered animation, wedged somewhere between is this real or did I just dream it? And wait, that wasn't an Adult Swim parody? Let's start with the man, the myth, the sunburn, Birdman. Before he became a desk-bound attorney on Adult Swim, Birdman was a legitimate superhero, part of Hanna-Barbera's mid-60s pivot into action animation. Back then, Birdman battled villains with names like Mentok the Mind Taker and Number One, which sound less like threats to mankind and more like experimental indie brands. Birdman's entire power set revolved around solar energy, which meant two things. One, every battle required dramatic mid-air sunbathing, and two, cloudy days were basically his kryptonite. Yet, despite his melodramatic poses, flamboyant wings, and a hawk named Avenger who did most of the lifting, Birdman represented Hanna-Barbera's attempt at sincere superhero storytelling. It didn't always hit. Animation cycles repeated with Olympic consistency, but the ambition was there. A globe-trotting action hero with a mythic identity and booming voice acting that insisted this was important, even when it really wasn't. But nonetheless, Birdman wasn't alone. Oh no, Hanna-Barbera had an entire universe of heroes before Marvel figured out how to make people care about obscure characters like Groot or Angry Raccoon with Gun. Imagine He-Man if he was a caveman with the power of a magic club, and if every threat was a dinosaur with anger management issues. That's Mightor, Hanna-Barbera's prehistoric powerhouse from 1967's The Mighty Mightor. Sounds very close to a certain Marvel character, but I digress. Mythor was essentially a kid granted the ability to transform into a buff grown caveman with a mask, something that today would launch 1,000 think pieces. But in the 60s, this was just Thursday. With his magical club, Mythor shot lasers, flew, and solved most conflicts via blunt force moral lessons. Despite its limited animation, Mythor had genuine imagination, volcanic layers, ancient beasts, weird tribal villains, and enough lava per episode to melt an actual continent. It was creative. It was colorful, and it was charmingly over the top. But of course, like most HB creations, it faded away faster than its cell paint. The Herculoids are what happens when someone says, what if Fantastic Four, but everyone is a kaiju? This show follows Xandor and his family, accompanied by Zoc, a dragon that shoots laser, Igloo, a rock monster who walks like he's constantly constipated, Tundra, the rhino triceratops with explosive energy blast, and the fan favorites Gloop and Gleep. Gloop and Gleep. Two shape-shifting blobs that were equal parts loyal companions and cosmic stress balls. The Herculoids fought alien threats, mutants, robots, and enough sci-fi warlords to qualify as a galactic HOA complaint. What made the series special wasn't plot complexity, it was spectacle. The Herculoids were raw, pulpy fantasy filtered through 60s animation limitations. It was like an Alex Raymond comic strip, but every character moved at 5 frames per second. And yet it worked. It was weird, bold, and visually striking. Something kids never forget, even if studios did. And as a footnote, the Herculoids was obviously an inspiration to 1995's Thundercats. And finally, before space operas were cool, Hanna-Barbera gave us the Galaxy Trio, a superhero team that patrolled the cosmos with the solemn duty of, well, enforcing galactic law without any understanding of interplanetary jurisdiction. The trio includes Vapor Man, who could turn into gas, Meteor Man, who could grow bigger or shrink, and Gravity Girl manipulated gravity with the precision of a bored Jedi. They cruised around in their ship solving cosmic crimes with all the gravitas of a spacefaring neighborhood watch. The Galaxy Trio had real potential, imaginative sci-fi settings, team dynamics, solid designs, But being packaged with Birdman meant they got half the runtime, which is a quarter of the budget, and maybe 3 extra animation frames. That's if the studio felt generous that week. They deserved more, but like so many HB heroes, they slid beneath the waves of pop culture amnesia. So, why were these heroes forgotten? Well, here's a mix of reasons. TV shifted focus, comedy over adventure, sitcoms over space operas. Limited reruns, some shows disappeared into rights purgatory. Animation evolved. Later generations saw them as relics and not icons. The biggest culprit is Adult Swim overshadowed them. Let's keep it a buck. Harvey Birdman became more famous than Birdman ever was. But despite being overshadowed by both Marvel and DC and everything streaming platforms shovel at us today, these characters were foundations. They were early attempts at serialized superhero storytelling long before cinematic universes existed. They were imaginative, earnest, bizarre, and wonderfully experimental. Birdman, Mightor, the Herculoids, and the Galaxy Trio were Hanna Barbera's attempt to create a superhero pantheon, a universe of heroes without needing a decade of interconnected films or a post-credits scene featuring Samuel Jackson. Were they cheesy? Absolutely. Were they limited? Technically, often very technically. But did they spark something? Hell yeah. A generation of kids, animators, imitators, and future creators carried these worlds with them. These heroes may be forgotten by most, but they live on in the nostalgia of those who grew up watching dragons shoot laser beams, shape-shifting blobs save the day, and a sun power hero shouting "Birdman" with Shakespearean seriousness. In an age drowning in superhero content, maybe, just maybe, it's time to shine a little sunlight on these relics again.